It's like participating in a great project that most people don't acknowledge you for.
Being a female veteran in Northwest Florida has a lot of challenges. Oftentimes when you say that, like on Veterans Day, you go to a place to eat and they ask you if your spouse was a veteran, or you ask for a military discount and they say, well, can I see your spouse's ID? Or it's for military service member only, not their spouse and dependent. So there's a lot of times when people assume that it's not you, that it's the husband.
So I've experienced the feeling invisible or standing out. When I worked for the American Legion, I went to this meeting and everybody else was in a black or blue suit and I showed up in this red dress. I stood out everywhere I went. But at the time, I was the only female veteran in a leadership role and it was really noticeable. And now I'm happy when I see more and more female veterans doing other things.
If they can just look at us as a soldier, as a sailor, as an airman instead of a female or a male, that would make a big difference because we all put on the same uniform, we all go out and we do the same job.
I've been in this area for the past 5 years and pretty invisible. I was at one of the local Home Depots and the guy in front of me, she asked, are you a veteran? You get a discount. So he showed his card and she said, thank you for your service. So when it was my turn, I said, I'm a veteran, here's my card. And she said, thank you for your support. And I said, no, I'm a veteran, I served. And she said, thank you for your support. So you see, we are pretty invisible.
It's quite delightful now. There were challenges along the way because I was an officer, and I remember very clearly walking down the street and guys would cross the street or they'd make a U-turn and leave so they wouldn't have to salute me. If I was with my husband, then obviously I got married later, but if I were with my husband, then no problem. But alone, it was a challenge.
Just like Suzanne, nobody really recognizes female veterans. I did have I have a hat I got from my friend Nancy, and it says "Woman Veteran" on it. And I have had a couple of people see that. I have it on my dashboard of the car, and the people that see that usually say, "Thank you for your service."
Northwest Florida is definitely a military-friendly community and veteran-friendly, more so than other places that we've lived, probably due to the concentration of military bases that we have here. So I've really enjoyed it. We've lived here off and on for about 19 years, and I love our community.
Here in Florida, it's been very welcoming. Maybe because it's a Navy town, but it's been very welcoming, I've seen so far.
So being a veteran in this area is very supportive, I feel, no matter if you're male or female, or at least that's been my experience.
I think it's very honoring. I mean, there's so much military in this area, so I don't feel like I've left that behind me. I mean, I love going to the Navy Hospital and, in the Aviation Museum and just being on the base, being with other military families and friends and people in my church that are young military families. So I feel like it's all around, and that's one of the reasons we live in Pensacola, is because we love it so much.
I think it's great. All the benefits that we have and the opportunities that we have, all the military bases, I prefer to go to them before I go to most other places.
I feel very much a part of a community of people that I haven't left behind.
It's interesting. I mean, I'm not really looked at like a veteran. My husband is also a veteran, so a lot of times we go out and people will thank him for his service. So like, hey, I'm here. I mean, not that I want the recognition necessarily, but just to, oh yeah, that was cool, you served as well.
It's very difficult. We are still invisible. It seems as though we're second-class citizens, even though we served alongside. It's still a very lonely place for women.
I have conversations with people that I first meet when I'm out networking and stuff and trying to meet new people, and they're like, oh, what brought you to Pensacola? When I say I'm not a local, and I say, you know, military brought us here, and they're like, oh, okay, awesome, what does your husband do? And I'm like, wait a minute, what if I was the one that was still active duty? And you know, I tell them, though, I'm very polite, and they don't mean any harm by it. And I say, well, he's active duty, he's a cop over NAS. And I was like, but I was actually in the Navy too. I served 8 years. And they're like, oh, wow. I don't know why it's so much more surprising for women than for men, but regardless, I mean, it's usually very welcomed and applauded.
Being a female veteran in Northwest Florida specifically, this is a great place for veterans. There are a lot of resources, there's a lot of other veterans here. As far as the entirety of this country, we're third in population of veterans, and as far as the state of Florida, we're number 1 in the panhandle for veteran population. So there's a lot of services here for veterans, and a very, very healthy community of different programs, so that female veterans can take part of those and try to, you know, integrate into the community as much as possible as well.
Well, it's always challenging as a woman veteran because I still run into people who say, thank your husband for his service. And I say, I'm the veteran when I have my ID card. Please thank your husband for his service. And I said, women are veterans too. And I served. So that's always a challenge, trying to break the mindset and to recognize a very, very important component of our services, which is women veterans.
Difficult sometimes. I have a business and I make t-shirts, and I had a friend request a t-shirt one time, and she said, I want a t-shirt that says I'm the veteran, not my husband. And that was a really cool thing for me to make, but it was really important too, because so often when we go out somewhere and they say, oh, well, you know, would you like the military discount? And then they automatically turn to the man. And for a lot of my friends, the man isn't the one who served. Or we go out for Veterans Day to a restaurant and it's, well, thank you for your service. Hello, hi, thank you for my service. It's not like something I would normally just, hey, but the fact that he was acknowledged and I wasn't is difficult.
It's different because we are a military town, so we already have the military here, and the fact that we care deeply for our military. We have the Blue Angels here. It's a huge sense of pride to be able to come home. Granted, I was in the Army, and there's not a lot of Army around here, but I still get the proper respect as just as anybody else. There's a lot of organizations here to help female veterans and just veterans in general, and it's amazing.
My experience as a veteran in Northwest Florida is very good. It's very empowering. I think the female veterans here are so dynamic, and they're exciting to be around. They care about each other, and they're always reaching out, trying to help. So it's been a great experience in Northwest Florida.
One of the reasons I love Pensacola is because it's a military town. There's such support for our military here. There's respect and tradition, and those are things that I think we've lost a little bit of. Women veterans are kind of a silent minority. And I think culturally when we come up in I've been retired for over 15 years, but in the 80s and 90s, we were really the top 3, the higher enlisted ranks were like 1% of 1%. So there was very little you could do for having peer mentors. There was there was small amounts of women in higher leadership positions. So I think the women kind of were more silent, and they've just kind of continue to be more silent. I think all of us are proud of what we've done, but we just aren't out there saying, hey, look at us. We know what we've done and we're proud of it. And I think we have confidence in that. We don't feel like we have to go tell people about it.
You kind of feel a little bit invisible, meaning that you have the male counterparts that are always looked as, okay, you've served. We can tell by the hat, the shirt, the clothes, everything that you serve. Thank you for your service. With us, I think here it's like slowly integrating, like, oh, okay, yes, you have served. Oh, okay, thank you. You're not a wife or a sister or what, whatever.
It's interesting because, as females, we're a minority anyways. But there's a lot of women organizations out there to help with female veterans. That helps a little bit, so.
I think we've come a really long way. I think that we're on this incline right now. I know in 1985 it wasn't the easiest thing, but I think now we've been very progressive and that we have a lot more respect. I think there's a huge awareness in our community. I love how the DNA of this community loves veterans and supports the military.
I think when I share that I have served, and it's like, oh, okay, really? Yeah, yeah, absolutely. 20 years? Yeah, actually, a couple of days over.
It's no different than anybody else because nobody realizes we're veterans. Every time we go to the commissary or on base, everybody assumes my husband is the veteran and I'm the dependent. So I always make sure they know. And my husband's very good about making sure that people realize I'm the one who served.
I figured there were maybe 10 of us in town. I never realized there was anything for the females.
Well, I think my best description would be we did a video, a Shiro Warrior conference, and we had a young woman who was there, and we asked her, how was things going? And she literally said to us, this is the first time I have felt safe in my life to be in a place that I'm safe enough to tell people that I'm a woman veteran. And I think that still holds true in our area. I think that we're a lot better, but I think that we're still there, not only as a community, but as a country.
Well, most people that would look at me would not realize I was a veteran, so I don't see any impact in Northwest Florida.
Because it's a military town, it's a little bit more friendlier, but at the same token, there's not a lot of veterans, I feel, female veterans, and we're not recognized. So I find myself, even though my husband is also retired, having to speak up and say, oh, I served too, and it gets frustrating, but rewarding once you're able to get your point across to someone, like, hey, there are actually females that serve too.
It does have its perks if you're a business owner. When I'm able to work with other business owners and they ask me if I am a veteran, because they're looking at woman-owned, minority-owned, and vet-owned, and disabled veteran-owned. So it has its perks in the business world for sure.
It's nice to be recognized with this event. We don't get a lot of recognition, or whenever we do have events like parades, it's nice to be able to be a part of it.
I love it because of the fact that we have Naval Air Station Pensacola. I used to work at NAS Whiting Field, and there are a lot of female veterans around. And I've also met a lot from other branches of the service, like Air Force, Army.
It is great. There are a lot of wonderful things about the military, and here in Northwest Florida, there are a lot of opportunities for female veterans. So, and in general, here in Northwest Florida, the military is respected and well known. So it's a very welcoming community for veterans in general and for female veterans.
To be honest with you, I really do not know. I served my country with pride, and I never looked at it as, look at me. I'm special because I did that. I did it for love of country. Some very close friends. Other than that, I don't really talk about it.
I think it's wonderful. People are so friendly and so willing to just thank you for your service, which sometimes is kind of embarrassing because you don't think of it that way. It's a privilege and an honor to serve our country and to fight for our freedom.
I've been here for 6 years, and not many people know that I'm a veteran. It doesn't come up in conversation, but I am more vocal about it these days, especially when I'm speaking with younger students, because I work with students.
It can be a little strange. I go to the VA for my health care, and you are surrounded by men, and they do tend to stare because they look at you, especially at my age. They look at you and they think, oh, she's young, she can walk upright, what is she doing here? But not all wounds are visible.
it's weird because everyone wants to know if your husband is in the service or was in the service. And for me as a doctor, is your husband also a doctor? It's constant deflection off of your own service.
It's humbling because everywhere you go, someone thanks you for your service. They are proud of what you've done for them, and they're thankful for their freedoms that we provide them.
It's very good because Florida, this part of Florida, really honor veterans, and so it makes it a great place to live.
It's been a great pleasure to meet very many of people who are like me. So I had a great time meeting, new female veterans that comes in and visit and then leave. But it's been a great pleasure to meet a lot of them.
Well, for me, it's been a good experience. I thought, in this area, there's so many military, there's so many bases that we are, we're treated with the utmost respect. So I've had a good experience.
I would say Pensacola. They do ask you a couple times, what is your husband's social? And I like to smile and say I'm the sponsor because I am for my big family. Once they learn that, they definitely show respect and just treat you, hopefully, like they treat everybody else.
People are often surprised when I tell them I'm a veteran as well. My husband served as well, and so when we say, yeah, we just retired, they look at him, they're like, oh, congratulations, thank you for your service. And then he's like, well, my wife served too. And they kind of look at me like, oh, okay, thank you. Not a lot of people are aware that women, there are women veterans. You usually think of a man in that role.
Well, it's interesting because I came home after I got out of the Navy, and I came home to Knoxville, Tennessee, which is the volunteer state. And I went to my first American Legion meeting, and they asked me where my casserole was. Because the male veterans came and had the meeting, and the wives brought the casseroles. So I was the first female veteran that they had in that American Legion group. So it was kind of interesting. They weren't used to it. And now there are a lot of veterans, women veterans, and we're active in many veterans organizations, the Vietnam group, and we do a lot of things with the male veterans. So, I think it's taught me how to stay active and engaged as a retiree, and I have loved every minute of it.
It's unique, very unique. There aren't that many of us, particularly the Vietnam era veterans. They are diminishing by the day. It was the same. Basically, most Vietnam veterans were ignored, or actually, after I came back from Vietnam, I was at George Washington University in school, and they were throwing tear gas at Vietnam veterans, of which I was one. But I didn't happen to be in uniform, so they didn't know that. But me and my group of fellow nurses hightailed it out of there, and they closed the school for a couple of days because of that.
I've got a lot of company, a lot more than I expected when I moved here from Tennessee. It was a very pleasant surprise.
I think it's pretty cool. It's like a rare commodity, I say. When you see someone that's a veteran, I love to wear my shirts that say, and people say, oh, you served? And I'll say, yes, I did. Not my husband. But it's pretty cool. You get to meet some nice women here, and just the thought that I'm here still where I retired at, and I went to aid school here as well. So it's been really fun. I get to meet a lot of new people, and yeah, I love it.
I have a wonderful feeling about it. I'm proud that I served. I have benefits with the VA, and I think it's great to show that women served as well.
I think there's a lot of support. They really welcome the military, and this is a good place to be a veteran.
Oh, I think it's wonderful because we're very accepted. The military is very accepted, very supportive. So it's just wonderful being here.
It's very interesting. I can tell you that most of the time the questions I get asked are, oh, you're in the military? Oh, you served? And that they're very surprised, especially because I have children. So they see me more as a mother and someone that would not be serving. So it's kind of surprising that the community here is more receptive to males in the military.
I think that people are amazed that there are female veterans. I live in an over 55 community, and they had a veterans night, and so I was going in, and one of the ladies said, "Oh, this is just for the men and for veterans." I said, "Well, I am a veteran, and I'm the only woman veteran in this development."
I'm very proud to be a female veteran, especially today, having survived Vietnam when I was called a killer and a few other things. So I'm very grateful for the welcoming and attention that the troops coming back today from the Middle East are receiving. They deserve it.
A lot of people have assumed that I am not a veteran. My husband is retired Navy, and we went to a meeting of a local veterans group, and I wanted to get involved. And when they introduced themselves to me and I introduced myself to them, and, and I said I had served, and then they introduced me to the whole group, and they introduced me as, this is Susanna, and she would like to join the Wives Auxiliary. And so it's kind of annoying at times to be assumed that, I'm not a veteran and I didn't serve and it's all my husband's service.
It's wonderful. I love being a veteran. I love that I can go to the VA hospital, and get medical attention. But yeah, and there's other women that are veterans that I love to connect with.
It's good. This is a very receptive and military-friendly town and community. I'm very constantly surprised at the warmth and the reception. And I think sometimes it's a little different. My husband's also active duty, and too many times, many times, the assumption of if a military or veteran issue comes up, it's the eyes go to my husband and not me. And particularly at my children's school or on Veterans Day celebrations, I'm probably the one of two out of all the veterans that are female that stand up. And it's definitely a male deferred kind of role, but that's okay.
Actually, it's great because this is such a military town, and seeing all the young people in the military in town is just awesome.
What I've seen so far and what I love is how much community involvement there is with veterans and how many organizations there are that benefit veterans. And so it's really nice to be in that environment.
It's wonderful. This area has a lot of support from locals.
It's actually pretty cool. We're a military community. I grew up in the military, so it's home for me.
It's interesting because there are a lot of veterans in this community. It is a veteran town, especially here in Pensacola. Female veterans aren't always seen as veterans, especially when they're with their counterpart. So when male veterans will be wearing their veterans hat or logo or a pen, I think female veterans tend to be a little bit overlooked sometimes. So I think that's changing a lot. I see a lot more signage on female veterans. Women veterans, you see a bunch of hashtags as well. So I think it's changing, it's growing.
It's lonely because you're easily forgotten about. You're overlooked. You're not included in the good old boys club.
Being a Vietnam veteran, it's really nice to be recognized. I'm not sure people quite understand how that makes us feel, because there's a lot of pain from before. It means a lot to finally be recognized.
Sometimes you feel invisible, especially after you take that uniform off. People don't realize that you're in the military. So I believe it's a little difficult because a lot of times when people think about a veteran, they think about the men. They never think that the women are veterans. And especially for me, I'm kind of almost like a unicorn, especially being African American female and being a senior officer because I'm a commander. And so sometimes I feel a little invisible. So.
For me personally, it's a little hard. My husband is still active duty, and a lot of the times being around active duty folks, it makes me miss it a lot of the times. And sometimes I want to scream, hey, I'm a veteran too. I know what the lifestyle is like, and sometimes I do feel kind of overlooked in that sense. But for the most part, just in my career at my work, the veteran community here is great. There's several female veterans at the company I work with, and it's just great to have a community and to be recognized from time to time.
You have to get people to see you, because as female veterans, people don't see us.
when you say veteran, people are so focused on men. So you have to put that female in front of it. And sometimes it can be difficult. Some days it's easy.
It's fun, but at the same time can be difficult for the fact that we're invisible behind our brothers in arms.
It's a little eclectic, I suppose. The base is smaller than other bases, so it is a little less limelight for us veterans, especially female veterans. They do have a lot of events, and when you go to them, usually with your spouse or other veterans that are male, they assume that only the males are the veterans.
I think it's a really great place to be a female veteran because it is such a wide variety of military in the area. We have all of the services very close by, so you have not only active duty, but you have a lot of retirees. You all have a lot of children of military in the area, so there's just a huge military family in the Pensacola, Northwest Florida area.
It's amazing. People love the military here, and I'm just glad that I had the opportunity to serve. And when they say thank you for your service, I have to say it was my pleasure.
It's just a really healthy place for women that's to come to share and reconnect. So I think we are kind of a good place to be a role model.
I would say it's united. There's a lot of female veterans in this area, and I enjoy being a part of a huge population, so it gives me connectivity, I think. So I like that rather than being in a separated area where there's not so many veterans.
I am amazed at the community that's here locally and the support system for the community. Grateful to be involved in this project.
I think more of it has come out in me since I've read about Nancy starting the Her Foundation, because I think it's really important they see us.
Being a female veteran is an honor and a privilege. I'm in a group of other female veterans called Woven, and we're really a sisterhood.
It's so many of us. It's nice. It's like a sisterhood. You know, you meet somebody everywhere you go that either served, or if they didn't serve, they served in another capacity by being a support system for someone who did, which was great.
Most people don't see us because we don't stand out. So I would say that it's quiet, but you are respected when they recognize that you are. They bend over backwards once they recognize that you are a veteran.
It is exciting to me because, one, I work at the VA and I'm around veterans all the time. So it's amazing to hear the stories, that they bring to me and that I tell them, and it's just wonderful.
It is a very welcoming area. People love the military here, and I don't tell people that often that I'm in the military, but when I do, people are really surprised and be always really welcoming and appreciative of the time that I've served, for sure.